Welcome, everybody. I am really happy today because I have a friend of mine, Haris, and he's going to talk about leadership and perfectionism. Usually I talk about perfectionism, but now I have extra value in the conversation. We're going to talk about specifically the patterns of perfectionism that we see in leadership. In case you don't know Haris, he's a leadership coach. He helps scale up and corporate professionals navigate career challenges, enhance leadership skills. I'm very interested into that, and achieve greater success and fulfillment. And currently, he's working on a project with Microsoft. Congratulations, Eli Lilly, Standard Chartered, as well as some IT scale ups. Another interesting fact about Haris is that he coaches in English, in Dutch, in French, in Spanish, and in Greek. I mean, really? Do you do that?
I actually do that. So,
Wow.
hello, everybody. I didn't greet people, and thank you for inviting me for this chat, Vassia. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it's really fun talking to you as well, and I'm always interested to know, your perspectives from all the career and leadership coaching you're doing. Specifically, these patterns that we talk about perfection. When we talk about perfections, we talk about a huge amount of self-criticism and self-doubt. That's something that we see very often. And in order to understand the consequences of self-criticism and self-doubt, we need to understand that one of them is that talented people, skillful people, they end up hiding from the spotlight because they are afraid of the judgment, of the rejection, of the criticism, and even they doubt about their own skills. I mean, that's something that I've seen very, very often. So I want to ask about your perspective from your experience, Harry. What are the most common reasons that employees doubt their own ability to take leadership roles? Because sometimes they just stagnate in roles that feel very much like comfort zone for them. And even though they can step up, they would be great leaders, they don't take these roles. So what are, from your experience, the common reasons that they doubt their abilities?
I'm very glad you're raising this question, Vassia, because that's the source of the problem with perfectionism in leadership. And in my experience, what tends to cause it are three things.
Mm-hmm.
It's low self-esteem, fear of failure, and cultural or societal expectations.
Mm.
Shall I break these down?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that you're putting in the mix internal but also external reasons. I like it. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so starting with a low self esteem, many clients come to me and say, I want to gain more confidence. They feel a little bit of confidence within them, but there's something else, that low self esteem, that takes up a lot of space. Sometimes this can take the form of imposter syndrome, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have to.
Yeah.
The second element is fear of failure, which is, of course, very closely linked to perfectionism, because in leadership roles, you get higher visibility and responsibility. And then the question, what if? That what if question. What if others notice that I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
What if others see that I didn't did it the right way? That question is much more relevant because of the higher visibility you have and because your responsibility is higher.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Visibility means responsibility, right?
Correct.
And it's scary. I get it. Yeah, absolutely. It's more scary than just being, as we said before, safely hidden in your cave. Absolutely. Good point. And what
Yes.
about the cultural expectations?
Well, the cultural expectations is something that is a recurrent theme in my coaching. It comes back very often when I see that a client has grown up in an environment that favors values as humility, as not presenting yourself as being better than others.
Mhm.
Do you have this experience too?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I totally understand it, and it brings me a lot of conversations in my mind that I've done with some of my clients, where either they learn it from their family or from the whole, society that they were raised in, the culture,
Yeah,
where they learn that speaking about your talents, for example, means showing off, and really, you're
exactly.
really confusing them
Yeah,
between what is confidence and what is arrogance.
yeah,
They believe that they will show up as arrogant if they take a better role, if they speak for their own talents, for example. And then humility, that is being seen as a virtue in their own culture, then eventually it becomes their own self-sabotage.
yeah.
They really believe that, I have to be humble, but at the same time they don't like it because they just stifle their whole talents.
So those cultural expectations, they do not have to be differences among different countries, although they can be, because we know that societies like the US, they promote humility much less than
Hmm.
countries like France or Greece.
Hmm.
And the Netherlands is somewhere in between, in my
Mm,
experience. But apart from the differences between countries, you can also have differences within the same country,
yeah, yeah.
right? You have different social groups that believe in different values. You have different religious groups. You have within the same religion people interpreting it and
Mm,
raising their children in different ways. So all those factors belong to this category of cultural expectations.
yes, correct, correct. Yeah, that's something that's, sometimes as leaders or people that are working with leaders, we can check with them what are the beliefs behind being a leader, or stepping up, or taking more responsibilities, or being more visible. Like, what is their background? And it can be, as you said, maybe the culture, maybe the country, or maybe even the family, even that can have that kind of beliefs, or as you say, the religion, or any other group that they belong to. Going into a different struggle for perfectionists that also are leaders, that can be the struggle to let go. So we know that, sometimes leaders, they want to make sure that they deliver the best result. They know everything that is happening in their department. Everything has to run through them. They have to check things again and again. They have really difficulty in delegating to other people, difficulty in trusting other people, because they can trust their own actions, but they cannot trust other people's actions. And that ends up again in then being completely drained because they have everything on their shoulders, and feeling scared and feeling over responsible about everything. So, my question is, why do you think some managers struggle to trust their team to complete tasks as well as they would?
Let's start by saying that letting go of control is hard. It's
Yeah.
much easier to trust yourself, although it's sometimes an illusion that you can fully control yourself. But it's easier to trust yourself than to trust someone else.
Yeah.
And especially for new managers who are not used to this can be a pitfall.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important leadership skills, trust, to trust others, to really connect with others on a deeper level, right?
And
So,
how are they going to learn if you don't trust them? That's the point of being a leader, like leading people to their next step. So how are they going to go to the next step if we're not going to trust them? So it's really counterintuitive.
yeah, you have this opposition there, but from the perspective of a new manager,
Mm.
They have their responsibility, they need to deliver, they feel that they cannot make let their team make too many mistakes because they will be accountable for those mistakes. So it requires time to find that balance and let go of the need to deliver the perfect result.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And actually, it's putting the same significance into every result, because a manager who micromanages and takes control of everything, they consider that all of them have equal importance. Like the email that their, for example, team member can send, they think that they are responsible for that and they need to check that as well. And they put the same significance to that email with also the planning of the strategy or of the project for the next 6 months, which is really their job, and that's why they have been chosen for this strategic thinking and not for writing the emails. But they think that these have equal importance, not only for them, but also for the people evaluating them. So that's why they put equal efforts and attention there.
I love this point. I love this point because being able to prioritize
Exactly.
is such an important skill.
Yeah.
And we all know that if we don't prioritize correctly, we won't be able to be productive enough.
Yeah. 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 And we're not going to be able to shine in the position that we were chosen for the talents that we were chosen. We want to be we want to be appreciated and recognized for writing the right email, but that's not the reason why we were chosen as leaders. It was mainly for the big picture planning, and of course for the cohesion in the team and for growing the team and trusting them. So, how does perfectionism show in leadership, and what is the cost, not only for the leader but also for their team?
Mhm, mhm. I would say that what we see in terms of perfectionism in leaders is an excessive focus on control, over preparing,
Yeah.
or maybe even delaying decisions until everything feels right. And this on the surface can look like high standards, but
Mm,
underneath, what we find is fear of being judged, fear of making mistakes, fear of not being good enough.
yeah, yeah. I like that you bring this distinction between the surface and underneath the surface, because maybe um, for them they think that they show up as having high standards, or maybe other people believe that, oh, they are so micromanaging because they are having really high standards. But
Yeah,
exactly as you say, underneath there's just fear, fear, fear.
yeah. And again, in coaching, we don't focus on that fear, we focus on what we want to have instead.
Yeah,
But as we explore the causes for the leader, this fear can be very exhausting because it leads to overwork, it leads to self-doubt, it leads to difficulty delegating, and that creates a mental load that can paralyze the person.
yeah, yeah.
At coach when leaders seek coaching, they are often one stage before that very loaded mental state,
Mm,
because I would say that if you already are very very loaded, maybe therapy can be a better approach.
mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. When we're talking about depression or about burnout, yeah, maybe there's a need there for more drastic change or more deeper, let's say, exploration. Indeed.
Yeah.
And for the team, what is the price they pay when they have a perfectionistic leader?
So a team with a perfectionistic leader experiences lack of trust, experiences micromanagement, and experiences a culture where mistakes are punished.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's like a constant threat. So imagine what it is for you as a team member to work in an environment where there is constant threat.
Yeah.
it's so like emotionally taxing, and
Yeah.
under those circumstances it's impossible to be productive on the long term.
Yeah. And even on the longer term, because you asked me to imagine myself how it would be as a team member, I can see how I would also be demotivated. I wouldn't want to work anymore on these projects because what's the point? Nobody trusts me. Maybe I'm not going doing a good enough job, or yeah, completely losing any connection with my job.
And this is unfortunately quite often the case.
Mm,
But on the bright side, I see that there is a lot of awareness being raised currently, especially in big corporations who have very well developed programs based on scientific research. And those programs promote values like psychological safety, right? So
mm,
managers are taught how to create a psychologically safe environment because this is by far the best way to thrive together.
okay. Tell me more about that. Like, how can managers shift from no one can do it better than me mindset
Yeah,
into a more growth oriented, like a trust based mindset? How can they make the shift?
right. Shifts like this involve a personal transformation, because if you have the belief no one can do this better than me, even if it's not an explicit belief, even if you would never acknowledge this even to yourself, if you have it though, and it might manifest as perfectionism, the first thing that you need to do as a manager is to educate yourself.
Mhm.
And I have been astonished at um, stories by clients who work for big corporations who have offered them lots of these high quality trainings. And they say, who I am now as a person, I actually owe it to my company.
Mm, mm,
So that's something very powerful that I experience with clients.
yeah,
So we are in the space of education. In this space, we move towards this growth mindset. And for that
yeah,
growth mindset, we need values like vulnerability, like psychological safety. Some of our listeners might be familiar with Brene Brown, who is like the biggest name when it comes to vulnerability,
yeah.
and why it's so important to dare to be vulnerable. And once we have educated ourselves, we need to adopt a coaching mindset. And
Mm,
what do I mean by that? I
mm,
mean that we step away from judgment, like we step away from this harsh belief no one can do this better than me, this black and white kind of
yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
So you observe it from a distance, and having understood the value of vulnerability, of psychological safety, and related values, you commit to small, they can actually be very tiny at first, steps,
Mm,
action steps that ignite change over time.
yeah. The power of tiny steps, huh? Amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what people are afraid of. How can I change my way of being? How can I stop this fear, this feeling of, if I let go, if I allow my team to do whatever they want, things will go wrong. But no, we need to work together. Together, we can achieve much more than I can achieve on my own. And as a person, as a manager, takes small action steps to move towards that mindset, the results come by themselves. And
Mm,
then it becomes easier and easier over time to stick to that. Learning, basically.
yeah. Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Yeah, becoming more curious, to, whatever results will come after these tiny changes, and believing in these tiny changes, as you said, the small steps, because also it's one of the counterintuitive features of perfectionism, we want big steps, we want big change, we want to have radical changes. But then the brain cannot hold these big changes, especially if we're talking about personality or mindset. We cannot, the brain cannot sustain that. So we will just go back to self sabotage again. And that's why what she said is really important. Start small, and then you're building on this journey by just learning every day, becoming more vulnerable, connecting more with others.
Yeah.
What are some things that a leader can do in order to empower their team to take ownership of tasks while also balancing their high standards for quality, of course? Eh?
Yeah. So if we see, okay, on a practical level, what can a leader do? We come back to psychological safety.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. What we want is lasting change and we want result. So what the manager has to do is allow team members to feel involved, to understand why their work matters,
Mm.
so that the high standards of quality that the manager has become the standards of the team itself.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Right. And what Amy Edmondson says that is useful to do in order to achieve that goal is to stimulate participation and respond productively. So, have an open door policy, show that you are available, you're approachable, and have this sense of fairness.
Yeah.
When somebody does something wrong, show that it is wrong.
Yeah. And I would like to add to what she said, the open doors and being, approachable and accessible, being open to feedback. I have an example in my mind where the team member was giving feedback to the leader, not about their leadership skills, but about how they feel with the projects that they have. And the feedback was that I don't like the projects that I have. I don't like the kind of clients you give me and the work that I'm doing. Is it possible that I move to another department or to another project and to get, more variety in the projects that I take?
Yeah.
And just because the leader was not open to that feedback, eventually the team member chose another way, and then they moved to another company. So not having our doors, as you said, open and being open to feedback and trying to incorporate their needs, of course, with the needs of the company and the needs of the team, we are risk of losing good team members, valuable, skillful team members.
Mhm.
So that's a great reminder about what he said, the psychological safety, being open, make them feel that their work matters, allow them to feel that they are involved, give them space to grow. Is there any key takeaway for leaders or aspiring leaders so that they can remember when it comes to overcoming doubt and perfectionism and control?
What I often see when I ask clients this question is that their takeaway is that communication is key,
Mm,
because communication is about releasing the focus on oneself, which creates the fear, right? Because if you're focused on the group, you're less afraid of the consequences that you will have as a person if you don't do your job the way you would like to.
true. True. And you will also see that the same fear is something that other team members are also having. It's not, you're not the only one. Other people are afraid of the same thing.
Yeah. So what do we say? Joy is multiplied when we share it, and fear or other negative feelings they are cut to
Mm.
half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're divided, they're decreased to half. Yeah, exactly.
So this synergy among individuals and among teams, when we're talking about different teams within a company, is what the leader needs to refocus to. They refocus on that synergy, and they feel part of something bigger.
Yeah,
And that releases fear, that releases tension, and allows one to be more resourceful.
absolutely. Yeah. And more proud when you see your team growing and seeing where they were when they started and when they are now. It's like wow, it's an amazing and very rewarding feeling. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they would like to work on their leadership skills?
They can find me on LinkedIn or through my website, harismexas.com.
And if they don't know, or if they're confused, whether they need coaching or whether they need therapy, what's the difference?
We need to start by acknowledging that there is a clear overlap within the two because they both address self perception, feelings, and the quality of one's interaction with others. But I would say that there are three main differences. In coaching, we do not give any diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching centers on the client's desired state and on building the awareness needed to move toward that desired state.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, for clients who are more concerned with career growth or solving career specific challenges, they might prefer to choose a coach because then they can target how to manage teams more effectively, how to grow the corporate ladder faster, and how to perform better.
Okay.
In coaching, we do three main things. We create clarity by defining the client's goal, and that can take quite a big chunk of the
Mm.
coaching trajectory. We set specific action steps at the end of every single conversation, which we use to create accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is very, very practical and very action oriented.
Yeah.
And as a coach, I am there to really support the growth path of an individual through specific actions, through evaluating how these went, and if needed, adapting those action steps to make them more and more effective looking ahead.
Yeah. And tailored to their own needs. Yeah.
Exactly.
And as you said before, when you're changing mindset, it's not something you can find in a cookbook. It's something that we have to work together, either with therapist or with a coach, in order to work with these beliefs that they stem from different environments or different experiences, and to work together with somebody else that holds us also accountable, holds the mirror so that we can see them and choose the values and the beliefs that we want to have moving forward. Thank you very much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. If the people who are watching or listening want to work together with Haris, you can find him on LinkedIn, Haris Mexas, or harismexas.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vassia.